Welcome to Not Starving Artists, the podcast. I'm Brooke, your host, money coach, and financial cheerleader, here to teach you the money management and mindset strategies of high-earning creatives. I graduated from college broke with a BFA in theater, having constant panic attacks about paying rent. And now I am a working actor, artist, and business owner in New York City, making a full-time income as a self-employed creative and on track to be a multi-millionaire in retirement, while still enjoying plenty of vacations and happy hour margaritas. So get ready to learn how you, as a self-employed hottie with fluctuating income, can have a relationship with money that feels safe, spacious, and sexy. The best part? No budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking about decision making today. If you are anything like me, you have a little bit of decision paralysis. You want to avoid making decisions, but then also at the same time, you're spinning out about decisions every single day. And I'm talking about more than just financial decisions, but we're going to definitely, of course, today talk about how this affects the financial piece. Why we're talking about decision making is because decision making and financial avoidance and overwhelm and anxiety and also executive functioning, like all of these things are tied in together. And what I've witnessed for myself and also my clients and just like my friends, as we're trying to make decisions that affect our money, right? So whether that is like a very practical money decision or a career decision or a decision about travel or like where to move, things like this. When making those decisions, there's an avoidance of like setting a decision in stone and like saying, this is what I'm doing and I'm moving forward with it and I'm going to feel good with it, while also every single day mulling over the pros and cons. What do I do? Trying to collect the evidence and the data. I know I got a lot of like logical minded people listening to this. Even if you are an artist and resonate with the like term type B for you, I'm pretty sure you probably have this logistical side of your brain of like, what are the facts? We need to make like a very practical decision in your brain. You want all of the evidence to tell you that a decision is going to be the right one to make. So it's these two things at play of actively avoiding making the concrete decision at some point, but then also always thinking about the decision and always spinning your wheels about it. And that leads to overwhelm. That leads to burnout. That leads to avoidance. This is where I say it's all tied up together. Avoidance and executive dysfunction, like putting things off because you don't want to have to think about it anymore. So, and we've talked about this too before. You've heard me speak about this when it comes to how you spend money. You have to give yourself an in-between where, okay, you're going to be on strict budget and like ramen diet and you're not going to have any fun, but your bank accounts are going to be happy, or your bank accounts are going to be drained, but you're going to be having the best time of your life. At the end of the day, when you're going through your life, you're obviously going to choose to have a great fucking time and not be happy about what you see in your bank accounts. You have to give yourself an option where you can have a great time and also like what you see in the bank accounts. So it's the same here, where if you're only giving yourself the choice between spinning your wheels every single day and constantly thinking about the decision, right? And having to be in that place, or I'm just going to black out and not think about it and just like wait until my back's up against the wall and then I guess future me will figure that out. You have to give yourself a place in between. And I'm going to give you some very practical things today in this episode of how to actually make decisions, have timelines to make decisions, and then also give yourself the ability to not be spinning out about it every single day. Give yourself breathing room to actually have enough experience to make a decision that feels good to you. I also want to talk about the money flow method here at the top. If you haven't heard me talk about the money flow method, if you've listened to any other episode before, you have heard me talk about the money flow method. The money flow method is a cash flow system for people who are self-employed, for people who have fluctuating income. It also works if you have a biweekly paycheck, but it was created for those of us who don't fit into traditional budgeting structures. So it's bank account organization, and it's how your money flows through your bank accounts to take care of your bills for you, put aside savings and investments and debt payoff without it touching like your fun spending money. You can have immediate clarity of all of your numbers, your income, what you've spent for the month, all of it by just logging into your bank account. There's no mental math. There's no cross-checking a spreadsheet. There's no budgeting because all of your money is separated at the top of the month. You manage it on a monthly cycle. So you're only managing your money one time a month, and it takes you less than an hour to manage. Okay? So that's the money flow method. Why I wanted to bring up the money flow method right at the top is because when I created the money flow method, well, one, I created it for myself, right? It was a system that I needed as someone who had fluctuating income in order to not have anxiety and panic attacks about money management. Even though my numbers were fine, I'm a very anxious girly. So the budgeting structures, how money is normally taught to us to be managed in a certain way, was fueling my OCD, was fueling my anxiety, was fueling my white knuckling. I was just anxious all the time. So I created it in order to give myself a softer way to manage my money that still allowed me to save money and invest money and put money towards future me and not go into the negatives. Like, I'm still able to have a great time, but I'm not having to manage it constantly. So I created the money flow method for that purpose specifically, to not have to use a spreadsheet, to not have to be on a budgeting app, and so that I could still hit my goals without meticulous management. So it was very focused in like the practical side. Can you all hear my dishwasher right now? She is gurgling. So it was rooted in two very specific things, which was the practical side of I need a way to manage my inconsistent income that's coming from a lot of different places. Because it's not just I have inconsistent income from running a business. I have inconsistent income from running a business, but then also I'm getting paid multiple other ways in my creative career, right? Like not just as an actor, for other kinds of projects. Even in my business, I'm getting paid multiple different ways, multiple different times of the month, multiple different amounts. Like that could be crazy making. So I needed a simple way to do that. But then also on the mental emotional side, I was like, I just need a way to not have to constantly be looking at it and assessing it and maintaining it. I needed to be able to have a little bit more hands-off energy. So those were the reasons I created it. But the longer that I use the money flow method, years and years now, and the longer I sit with it, and the more I watch my clients implement it and utilize it, and even my partner has been using it now for, I think, about 2 years. He's been using like the actual money flow method. Watching them experience it, I just find more and more ways that it is beneficial to our mental health, to our emotional health, to like just the analogies of it. So part of why I'm talking about this now is because it's going to tie into what the practical thing I'm going to give you today, which is called trigger dates. And this is the idea that you have to give your decisions or your data collecting, you have to give it time to collect and to the experience to happen before you're in editing, assessing, and decision-making mode. Like if you're constantly in maintaining, assessing, editing, decision-making mode, you don't have any life to live or like data to accumulate or things to witness to then be able to make accurate edits and accurate assessments and accurate different decisions moving forward. So that's like a life thing. And we're going to talk about trigger dates. That's how you are going to be able to give your life and your money time to marinate before you actually make the decision, and then give you the ability to make a decision with so much more confidence than you just thinking about it every day and spinning out about it every day. Okay, so that's trigger dates. But then this brings me back to the money flow method, because what the money flow method is it's running you on a 30-day cycle. So you're not managing your money every day or every week constantly over and over all the time. You're managing it one time a month every single month. So there's consistency, but you're also giving yourself a month to just like vibe and intentionally spend and see what happens with, like, if you're making a new business decision or you're trying out a new way of like making money as an artist, or you got a new day job, or like you quit your day job and you're like, okay, before I dive into anything new, let me just ride this next month out and see if anything new can come in. Like there's so many things that you need to let ride out some time that are directly correlated with your finances. And when you're assessing your money, If you assessed your spending every single day to decide whether or not you were on track, you would drive yourself absolutely crazy and you wouldn't get good data. So, 2 weeks ago, I went to the grocery store and spent $200. Now then the next 2 weeks, I barely spent any money at the grocery store. I just picked up some produce and I went out to eat here and there, and that was it. But the first week of the month, I spent so much money. So if I was assessing my spending that week, I'd be like, whoa, I'm spending a lot more than I usually do in a week. Or the day that I spent it, my budgeting tracker would be like, you spent way more today than you did at this time last month. Watch it, girl. That would make you crazy, but it's not accounting for then the next 2 weeks, I'm not spending $200 at the grocery store. But if you're on that kind of immediate cycle and that constant maintenance and assessment, you're gonna come to the wrong conclusions. But when you zoom out and you look at your trends over the entire course of a month, you have a much more accurate picture. Now, I want to talk women specifically. We know that we literally run on a monthly cycle. Our biology is on a 28-day-ish cycle. We run on a monthly season system. So let's take our emotions for a second. There might be during your luteal phase, you're having a breakdown, a crash out where you're like, I just need to burn everything down. I want to shut down my business. I want to quit my creative career. I want to move and be a yachty, right? Below Deck just came out and you're like, oh, that's my life. I'm going to go do that. You might be having those thoughts in your luteal phase. You need to wait another 10 days and then see if in your ovulation phase you are feeling the same way, because most likely you're not going to be feeling that way in your ovulation phase. You're going to be like, oh, actually life is great. I just needed some sunshine. And wow, this feels really good. I really love my life. It would be crazy for me to go live on a yacht, right? And so you can see then your trends month after month after month. If you're not journaling and kind of assessing your emotions as you go through the month, it's very helpful to be like, oh yes, this is just one of those times. I know where my brain likes to go when I'm in this part of my cycle. But do you see the correlation there? If you are making life decisions specifically based on that 1 week, versus let's not make that decision yet. Let's ride out the month and see if that feeling is still lingering after all of the phases of my cycle. And then maybe I want to give it 3 months to see if this thing keeps following me cycle after cycle after cycle. And this also applies to your income if it's fluctuating and if it's inconsistent. It would be really easy to feel like the day that you get the big paycheck that drops in your bank account from the commercial gig you did, it's like, wow, this is great. Life is so good. But then you have 3 weeks where no creative paychecks hit your bank account. It would be really easy during those 3 weeks to be like, my life is over. I'm never getting paid again. But if you zoom out and you look at your entire monthly income for those 30 days, you're going to be like, wow, that was a really good income month, even though it just came from one paycheck. But we can even zoom out further, where especially if you own a business, you want to be looking over the course of a quarter, right? And over the course of a year especially if you're doing a launch model, or you have seasons where you're selling a lot and then seasons where you're riding the money that you created during your times where you were selling a lot. If you look at the month where you made a lot of money and a lot of invoices hit, and then you compare that to the very next month where you might not be launching anything, or you're currently delivering on all the sales that you made previously, or whatever it is. If you are inside of that second month, but you're not looking at the big picture, you're going to be like, everything's broken, this is not good, etc., etc. Especially if you haven't learned how to use the money flow method and learn how to use your high income months to buffer your low income months so you don't actually panic. I posted this on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, I believe, and I showed the difference between, I had 2 months back to back in April and May, and I had a $10,000 month in April and I had a $1,000 month in May. And so if I wasn't zooming out and looking at the big picture of that, I got a lot of initial payments during the month of April, and then I was delivering on those payments in the month of May. So when I look at those 2 months together, the average is 5.5 $1,000. That feels really good. And part of the money flow method is something called the surplus sequence. And that is when you take the excess money that you earn during a higher income month and you funnel it through different priorities to be able to fill up your 3 months ahead on bills buffer, to be able to put chunks of money towards savings and investments or other spending things that you want to do, a vacation, whatever, give yourself a bonus. So I ran my money through the surplus sequence and I was able to fill up more in my 3 months ahead on buffer fund. I'm about 6 months ahead as of right now. And so then when I had my $1,000 month, nothing went wrong and I didn't panic. I was just able to pull money and put it into the business bank account so it was able to like keep running how it normally does. So this is like the zoom out that the money flow method and the 30-day cycle and what we're going to talk about with trigger dates allows you to do. It's going to make it very clear the difference between, is there an actual problem you want to solve or something you want to adjust versus I feel like there's a problem because I'm dysregulated and in this immediate moment with all of the data points that I'm seeing in this exact second, minute, day, week, I don't like and I feel bad, so I need to fix. So to sum everything I've said so far up, it's that you can't sit in worry and assessment and adjustment every single day. You have to make a confident decision and then ride out what that decision will be. And then you're going to assess again at a predetermined date to decide if, when you look back at that amount of time, if you like what happened or if there's things you want to adjust. And then you're going to make another decision and then you're going to let that ride out. So with the money flow method specifically, this is running on a 30-day cycle. At the top of the month, you're putting money into bank accounts and like setting yourself up to spend on flex spending, fun spending, also getting your bills set up to then ride out for the next 30 days. So your only job for the next 30 days is to stay intentional about how you're spending so you don't end up in a fuck it blackout, okay? But you're planning ahead and then you're letting your money do its thing and then you're just staying intentional with spending. Then at the end of that month, at the top of the next 30 days, you're going to make new decisions. Do I want to adjust how much I'm spending? Was I actually able to stay in alignment with what I decided the month before? Do I like how this is affecting my bank accounts? And this applies to your business finances too. The money flow method is both for personal finances and business finances. So like you make a decision about like a new offer or a new service you're going to provide or like a new way that you're going to start selling. You have to then go all in and let that ride out for at least 30 days to see if there's progress or a difference or whatever. You can't just keep adjusting every day or every week if you're not seeing you need to give it time, breathing room. So the money flow method runs you on 30-day cycles. But I want to now talk about other types of what I call trigger dates. Trigger dates are a date on the calendar in the future, literally on your calendar, that you are telling yourself that is the date you are going to make a decision on. And this decision can be anything financially, it can be artistically, it can be relationally, it can be anything. But you are choosing a date in the future that is the date you are going to make the decision. Before that date, there is no thinking about this decision. There's no making pros and cons lists. There's no trying to like adjust and assess. There is nothing. You are just now moving forward how you desire to move forward, seeing what you see, experiencing what you experience. I'm going to give you some examples in a second. And then when that date hits, on that date, you then get to look back at all of this time, the things that you implemented or like you were deciding that you are going to assess at this time, collect all that data, whether it's numbers or feelings or life experience data, and then on that date, you're going to make the decision. And then you're going to be able to make it with more confidence because now you're using previous days and months and weeks of data to make that decision, make it with 100% confidence, and then you can move forward again, potentially with then another trigger date down the road that then no more decisions need to be made. You've made that decision on the first trigger date. Let it ride out. Let it do its thing until the next trigger date. And then you're going to assess that previous chunk of time. This is really helpful, especially when you feel like you're in no man's land or when you're having a renaissance of the soul is what I like to call, not a midlife crisis, a renaissance of the soul. I'll give you an example. One of my clients, they had left their corporate job and they had a bunch of savings and investments to be able to live off of until they figured out what their next career move was, or if it was working for another company or starting their own thing or moving to another country or whatever it was. There were so many options open to them. And like having this money to support them, but constantly being afraid that it was going to run out and it was going to run out. And am I taking too much time? Am I taking too much time? So in this energy of no man's land is what it was feeling like. We set up trigger dates of like, okay, what do you want to explore right now for the next 3 months? And we were able to, because money is numbers, we know it's not just numbers. There's always emotions and nervous system and mental stuff attached to money. But it's also numbers, which means we can do math around the numbers, very easy math. So we were able to literally see how long her current money would last her. And we were able to say, okay, if you live this kind of lifestyle, it'll last you this amount of time. If you want to have a bit of a cushier lifestyle, it'll last you this amount of time. So we would do it in like a couple of months at a time of, okay, you're going to explore this new thing for the next couple of months. And on this next trigger date, that's when we're going to assess of like, do you like the lifestyle you've been living? Let's look at your money. Let's make sure our math is still correct of what you have moving forward. Also, looking back, did you like that path? Do you want to change course? Do you want to try something different? And so there was a lot of different trigger dates during this. It was about an 18-month period. A lot of different trigger dates of she was not allowed to worry about the money, because it's real easy when you don't have income coming in, if you are in a season of spending, a season of exploration, when you are in those seasons, to be constantly worried about the money running out. But trigger dates say you are going to be fine no matter what until this date. So you actually literally do not have to worry about it. This is also the beauty of being 3 months ahead on bills, because you have this built-in trigger date of you actually don't have to worry about your bills until 2 months in, because then you've still got a month of buffer to be able to course correct if you need to course correct. So she had this time where she didn't have to worry about money, where she could just fully focus on the new career things she was exploring, the interview processes she was exploring, potentially moving to another country. She moved out of her house at this time. She was dabbling in different things. So then at that next trigger date, then we were able to look back at all the stuff, and she was like, okay, I want to go another 3 months. Because it was kind of the energy of, when do I need to go get a job at a coffee shop? That was kind of the big overarching question. And so at every trigger date, that was basically the question that was being asked. And like, how much further out can I let this ride? And so these trigger dates allowed her, in a time that could have been completely fueled by anxiety and panic and financial stress and career stress, it actually allowed it to be more of a sabbatical, where she could actually just rest and heal. There were certain chunks of those times where she was like, I'm not going to job search. I'm just going to play the sport that I want to play right now and sleep and make sure I'm eating enough. And that's all I'm going to do. And it's like, great, you have X amount of months to be able to do that. Only focus on that. You are not allowed to think about anything else until that next trigger date. So it was actually able to be healing. My partner and I did this when we were living in Denver, and he was making a career transition, and we were then planning to move to New York. So he was currently unemployed during that year, and I was building my business more. And so we had certain trigger dates in place throughout that entire year. We didn't know it was going to last a whole year and be in Denver for that time. But it was every couple of months we would sit down and be like, okay, here's how much is left in the savings to support his side of the rent. And then at some point it was like, okay, and then at this point we both had cars, and he was like, I'm going to sell my car to be able to pay for rent the next month, and then we'll both use this car. And then when it was came time to move to New York, it was, I mean, crazy not being in New York during that year, trying to get an apartment when everyone was like flooding the in-person apartment showings. There was no way we thought we were going to be able to get one being out of town. So we had certain trigger dates where we're like, okay, if we haven't been able to find an apartment by this time, okay, well then we are going to just move and we'll live in this hotel, and then we'll be in person. And then if we haven't found an apartment by this time. So we had all of these trigger dates set up, again, in a year that could have been insanely anxiety inducing, and also not fruitful because of all that anxiety of like my partner searching for a new career and me growing my business and us moving from one big city to another big city. Of course, I did have anxiety during that year, of course, but it wasn't fueled by anxiety. There was so much like peace and ease in those seasons that we were able to experience. And my partner was able to make one of the like most incredible like quantum leaps that I have seen a person make, because he was able to just fully put himself into pivoting into a totally new career path without being like, oh my God, how are we going to figure this out financially? Or like, oh my God, do I need to get a job at a coffee shop? That we had these dates set up to avoid that energy suck. I'll talk about one first, specifically my artists here. The phrase like, should I go all in? Or like, I'm going all in on my artistic career. One, what does that even mean? But that's a phrase that I hear a lot of, like, I'm not going to have a backup plan. I'm not going to have a plan B. Or like, do I just need to go all in? Is that how I'm going to get movement? And there's something about that where decide what going all in means. Like, where are you not going? Does it mean quitting your day job? Okay, and then if you quit your day job, then what does it actually look like for you day to day to be going all in? And then like, what financially would that require of you? And so then what you're able to do is like, if you want to do some go all in sprint season artistically, which I think there is space for that. If there's a specific project or like, and you know, your gut, your instinct, your intuition will tell you if this makes sense for you. But I think there is a space for it. But what I will say is trigger dates will help make sure that it doesn't throw you into poverty and burnout. Right? So you're able to see ahead of time, here's how much money I would need to be able to do whatever go all in means for you. How much you would need to be able to support that going all in. Not just your bills and your rent, but the investments you would want to make in whatever artistic thing you're pursuing. And then you have a date on the calendar of, if this thing didn't pan out, or if I didn't book the thing, or if I didn't get any investors for this project, or by this date, then on that date, I'm going to make a different decision. But then you actually get to be in the I'm going to go all in mindset without this constant fear of like, what if I run out of money? What if it doesn't work out, etc. And then on that trigger date, you can decide to extend that period of time. But it's removing the spin out energy that could drain your artistic energy or whatever creativity you're hoping to infuse that time with. It's like the energy of a fail-safe or plan B. Like, you have this time that you know you're going to be okay until, and then at that time you can make a decision before you end up destitute or like in a deep hole or like wasting all this time, because those are some of the things that our brain really likes to be scared about. You're giving yourself that wall between you and that greatest fear, and then you have this pocket of time where you then just get to vibe and experience and pursue and chase and whatever that means. Now, I'm going to talk relationally for a second. Now, I'm obviously not a relationship coach. This is not relationship advice. And I will never give advice on like ultimatums or like what are deal breakers or red flags. What I want to say though, financial deal breakers are valid. If you have financial deal breakers in a relationship, or you're feeling like, yeah, like this person has a lot of debt, and if we get married, that debt becomes my debt, and I've worked really hard to stay debt free, and so I feel bad that that's a deal breaker because I love this person so much, but like that is a deal breaker. I want you to know that it is okay to have financial deal breakers, because financial manifestations like money in the bank and debt and whatever can sometimes, not all the time, be tied to something deeper. Someone's character, someone's worldview, how they function in the world. And those sorts of things are important things to navigate and make sure you're in alignment with in a partnership. And especially if we're talking about like marriage and the tying of assets, that is what marriage is. Like, you are signing legal documents that you are together and combining, like it is a legal transaction, a financial transaction when you get married. So it is important that you are in alignment with those things. So I just want to say, if you have financial deal breakers, that's okay. And it's especially okay because sometimes those deal breakers, it's not actually about the money piece, it's about the thing that's fueling it. So when I talk about trigger dates, I've had conversations with some clients in the past where there is a relationship and there's something financial that feels sticky within the relationship. And so what they've decided to do as a couple, or even just them on their individual side, is set a trigger date, like have a conversation and say, here's what I would need to see. Here's why I would need to see it. Let me hear your thoughts. Like, let's have a deep conversation about whatever money thing is feeling sticky. And then what are we going to do about it to get in alignment together as a couple? And then you both as a couple then move forward knowing that there's a date that you're going to then come together and reassess of like, okay, at the end of the year, if X, Y, and Z hasn't happened, or it's not feeling like there's movement, then here's then the decision that we're going to make at that time. So it takes some of the pressure off of like that spinning of the wheels of like, every single day being like, should I stay in this relationship? Every single day thinking, do we need to like make some big move? Like and it also gives you, because the women that I coached on this specifically, I mean, as women, God, there's so much tied up here. But like, we're taught that we're on a clock and time feels precious, especially in our younger years, and especially if you want biological children and those sorts of things. And so that can feel really anxiety inducing if you're not sure relationally and if financial stuff is getting sticky. And so again, what this allows for you is it allows you to take some of that like pressure and anxiety and like, we need to change now and we need to figure this out now. It's like, you can let the human thing happen of things readjusting and changing course if that's what you want them to do. But then if they haven't, there is a date that you then get to assess and make a decision about moving forward. Otherwise, you kind of, and now I'm going to pull all the way back and talk about all of the things we've been talking about in this episode. If you're trying to do both at the same time of like make the decision and also assess, and you're constantly in that cycle, you get stuck in an endless cycle of just assessment, but then nothing's actually changing. Making pros and cons lists, but nothing's actually changing. Deciding what you don't like, and then nothing really actually changes because you don't have a specific date where a specific decision is being made. The most effective way to make any decision, especially financially, is to make the decision, see what happens, let it vibe out until the next date that you've decided where you're going to make a new decision or assess the previous decision. And then you're going to let it ride. Decision, vibe, decision, vibe, decision, vibe. And then you're assessing when you were vibing out, what did you discover? That's the cadence that needs to happen that leads to the most effective decision-making and the decision-making that you don't regret because you're actually basing it off of life and feelings data. If you want to get your personal and business finances on this 30-day monthly cadence with the money flow method, I'm currently running a 30-day money glow up, which is a private coaching program that is 30 days long. And you get 2 coaching calls with me, one at the top of the 30 days and one at the end of the 30 days. At the top of the 30 days, we're going to set up this money flow and also diagnose your biggest money mindset block so that you don't have any struggle implementing the money flow method and actually doing the practical things that we talk about with the money plan I'm going to give you. And then you're going to implement that and then ride it out for 30 days. And then at the end of those 30 days, we're going to come together and assess not just what happened practically inside of your money flow and inside of your numbers, but what mentally did you go through? And then you're going to be able to have the system for the rest of 2026, because I'm running this program only through the summer. You're going to have that system for the rest of 2026 to have that monthly check-in, that monthly trigger date, that monthly CEO party where you can make financial decisions, let it ride, make financial decisions and let it ride, which is going to really decrease your financial anxiety while giving you clarity in your numbers. I've got the link to enroll in that in the show notes. And you can also on Instagram, I have a post about all of the details. You can also DM me Hot Girl Summer on Instagram. I'm going to link that Instagram post where you can learn all of the details. I don't have an official sales page up for this. I just wanted to get it out to you quickly because I want y'all efficiently getting your money shit together during these peak summer months. I've been tanning on my porch every single day for the past week because it's been so nice out. We are in summer. There is no time to be creating a sales page. I want you in and out with your money and your efficiency. Okay. I do want to leave you with one quote about decision making. This is one of my favorite quotes. It comes from Mike Dooley, who writes Notes from the Universe. It's a daily newsletter. He has books. He's wonderful. But this is one of them that he sent out like years ago that I keep saved in my email drafts because as someone with decision paralysis, this really helps me anchor into decision making, especially as someone who has a very strong gut intuition about things. Here's his note. A universal rule on decision making. Don't make them until it's time to make them, unless you already know what you want, in which case, however, there is no decision to be made. You know, the universe. See you all next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to become the financially confident CEO of your life and career, you can learn more about private coaching with me by heading to notstarvingartist.com and clicking on the one-on-one money mentorship page, or hit the link in the show notes. You can also grab my self-study online course, Cashed Up Creatives, which is the full financial curriculum that you were never given in college. You get the first module totally free, so click the link below and you can start learning today. For all workshop and speaking engagement inquiries, send a message to support@notstarvingartist.com. And as always, if you love this episode, please like, comment, review, send it to a friend, and I will see you next week.